Can you hear me okay? No? Can you guys hear me? Yeah? Okay. We are good. We're just going to give it a minute until Victoria pops on here. Okay, welcome everybody. I'm so glad to have so many of your beautiful faces on our call tonight. I am just super excited. Some of you may not know me, most of you will. My name is Megan Baldwin and I am one of your platinum leaders with Young Living. And tonight I feel super honored that our amazing Young Living General Manager, Victoria, is on the call with us. I'm just going to share like a couple things about Victoria and then we're going to get started. And if time permits, we can see if we have questions in the chat tab. If we can get to questions, we will kind of look at those. But Victoria, she joined Young Living in September of 2017, bringing with her more than 20 years experience in the network marketing industry. We have a lot that we can learn from her. Her unique expertise in direct sales, strategic mentorship, and passion to helping members reach their goals has empowered many to move from the barriers of their success and to reach their goals and to contribute to significant growth in Canada. So Victoria shares that we are here as a company to impact people's lives in a meaningful and positive way. One of the biggest things is our 5x5 pledge that Canada plays a huge important role in, and that's what upholds our industry leadership with Young Living. So prior to joining Young Living, Victoria held leadership roles in other network marketing companies, and she helped to develop and implement sales and marketing plans that supported various business opportunities and growth. So I am going to turn it over to Victoria. I just want to keep in mind that you guys, if you're jumping on, if you can just mute yourself so we don't have any background noise, so we can hear Victoria very clearly. And yeah, take it away. So here's Victoria.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, Megan. And, you know, when you invited me to join your call, I was really honored by that invitation. And I will always jump on any opportunity to get to know you, to get to know your team, you know, your leaders, all of that, because it's really the heart of what we do. If there's one thing that I've learned, you know, over the time that I've been in network marketing, it's really about connection. So I will always jump on that opportunity to make more connections and to get to know you a little better. So now, if you just help me out a little bit, what is this a whole team? Like various levels? Is it leaders? Like who do we have on the call? I'd love to get to know you and hear a little bit about you, because you know when you listen to yourself it's like, oh, it's so embarrassing, you know? Oh my goodness. So what level do we have on this call tonight, Megan? Is it just is it your whole team, or?
So this excuse me, so this is a lot of our team, anywhere ranging from like senior star, I think we might have a couple stars, all the way up to platinum on the call. So we have some stars, senior stars. So we have a wide range of people that are new with building their business and also more seasoned and people just needing some encouragement and some fire under their butts. So yeah, including myself.
Okay, well that's, you know, that's easy. It's you know, I have been with a couple of network marketing companies, and you know it's funny because you can say they're the same but different. And the one thing that I learned very, very quickly about Young Living is that we are the best. Like we truly are the best. And for those of you, and I just see it in the chat, Angela says she needs some fire. Okay, so let's work on that. For those of you that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, to give you just a little more background of where I am in Young Living geographically, I right now travel back and forth between the Ontario Experience Center, which is located just outside of the Toronto area, and to the Alberta Experience Center, which as you probably know, is in Calgary. So it's been my pleasure in my Young Living journey, even this far, to which, it's kind of, when I think about it, it's really kind of young. But I think about the impact that Young Living has made in my life and the healthier choices that I'm making. Just when it's, when you think about lifestyle choices, when you think about things like home purification and all that, all the stuff that you know already. But the wonderful thing is that we have the opportunity every day to share this. And that's what makes me really, really excited. And that's what gets the fire in me going. So I have the pleasure of being able to see our members come into the experience centers, which, as you may or may not know, are will calls. And we're very fortunate in Canada to have two. And that's really, really something. So, depending on where you live and where your teams are located or family or whatever, if you are ever in the Ontario, outside the Toronto area and Calgary, then you really need to come and see the experience centers, because I refer to them as your palace. That's exactly what they are. So I get to talk to members every day, and that really is what I consider the most special part of what I do. And I can tell you very honestly that you teach me things every single day. And I think most of us, just, by nature, are learners. Like we want to know everything. And just from the very beginning, when we're children, and the questions that we ask, and the things that we need to know, and as we grow. And I think that the most powerful thing is that opportunity to share. And I encourage our members to do that every single day. But the question that I get a lot is, well, I never know what to say. I never know how. I'm always afraid of being pushy. Anybody that sound familiar to at all? So, there's this thing, this stigma attached to being pushy. And I get it, because just so you know, I was in the field when I first started my direct selling career. I worked as a distributor, representative, consultant, whatever, so many names. And so I grew a business and I grew a team. So I know what that means to have that, I don't know, that whatever it is, just kind of holding you back, and you don't ever want to be perceived as that pushy, salesy person. I get it. I absolutely get it. But the one thing that I think is so easy for us in Young Living is that it's about lifestyle choices, wouldn't you say? So when you are thinking about the other person, when you are totally others oriented, then sharing becomes easy. And and I see it happen at the AEC. I see it happen at the OEC. When you break through that barrier of knowing that it's really not about us or about you, it's about that other person. And then it becomes so liberating, because we have so much to talk about. But the key is to try and figure out what's important to them. Because that's the other thing that I see happen a lot, is we just sometimes get so excited and so just willing to share that it's just like, and we're like overwhelming the person. And then what happens when you get overwhelmed? You put the brakes on. So really the key is about finding out what's important to them. And then the conversation just becomes so easy. And you think about what your journey was like and what you were doing when you found Young Living and the kinds of things that are important to you. Well, when you start to share your story, then that's where the magic starts to happen, because people can see themselves in you. But here again, it's a little bit of finessing, because you don't want to overshare, because people don't know how to how to respond to that. But you also want to be very cognizant of leaving that space for them to ask questions. And I don't know if anyone of you here tonight have been on our emerging leader call. And for those of you that have, we're going to bring it back. We are just kind of getting things, rejigged and figuring out, because it's been a little bit to navigate through this, but it's been wonderful, that's for sure. But we talk about that on the emerging leader call, and sharing your why succinctly, compliantly, but with meaning and with intent. And in doing that, then you start to develop that finesse, as I talked about, in your sharing, and you leave that space for the questions. And there is a perfect example of it not being about you, because you want the other person to ask questions so you can discover what's important to them. Is it like essential oils? Is it home purification? Is it supplements? Like whatever that is, that's your job. That's what you need to discover. And if you do it in a way that's not this, verbal avalanche of everything that's happened to you, then you truly do start to develop that connection. And if there's one thing that I've learned in my entire experience, is that that's what this business is about. It's about the connection. And today, we have so many beautiful ways of making that happen, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's classes, whether it's through social media, but there will be nothing that replaces you. And that's a really big lesson that I learned too, because people will become part of a company, no matter what that is, because of you. You are the face of the company. And when they feel that they are welcome, when they feel that there is space, and I'm just sorry, I just looked in the chat. Christy said verbal avalanche. Yeah, I know. I get it. Yeah, thumbs up. Yeah, verbal avalanche. But you can tame that. And the funny thing is, sorry, because that's a big topic. That's a huge topic. But you can actually tame that, because we all hear that little voice in our head that says, I'm talking way too much. I really have to stop talking. We hear it, but we ignore it. Right? So when that happens, then you really have to start paying attention to it. And that's going to be one of your signals, so that you leave space for the other person to have that conversation with. And again, conversation really is about the connection. So think about the things that you do to develop that connection. And are you doing enough of them? That's really what it boils down to, because I hear often that, I feel like I'm making the connection, but I'm not getting anywhere. Anybody ever been there? So that's where it comes the time to do a little bit of reassessment. And one of the things that I'd like to do is, whether it's electronic, whether it's pen and paper, it doesn't matter. But on your own scheduling, here's a really great tip: color code. What? So color code your activities. Assign a color to whatever activity that is something that you have to do every day. So we all know that if you have kids, you have to take them to school, or you have to, do the parent thing. We all know that. So what color is that for you? Business-wise, but because it's really, really important that you factor in that personal time, and don't pretend having to do personal stuff doesn't exist, because it does. And when you acknowledge it and make the time for it, then you're going to be more at peace with yourself and not feel guilty about doing something that needs to be done, but I really should be working on my business, and that whole power thing. But when you start to understand it's part of life, it's what I need to do, the real thing that you're trying to do is just get a handle on everything that you need to do in a way that's going to help you feel productive and not beat yourself up. Because we've all been there too. So I remember when my boys, well, boys, they're young men now. I would take a business call when they were in the bathtub, like they were just little, and I just kind of had to shake my head one day. What am I doing? Like, part of the reason why I got into network marketing was because that I could stay home with them and I could enjoy those times with them. And yet I was bringing business into that family time. So I quickly gave my head a shake. And then I realized that I had to start segmenting and being more disciplined with time. I know you don't like that word because I didn't either. Discipline with time. That was a real tough one. But be honest with yourself. How much time are you spending on your business? If it's not where you want it to be, take a look at the time you're spending on those activities. And color coding is really going to help you because you know why? It's in your face. You can really and truly notice. If you're spending enough time on those activities, like, are you booking one-on-ones? What color do you want to, put on that? Are you doing classes? What color would that be? Time to develop your team, time for, coaching and spending with your team, team care calls, all that stuff. It takes time, and we know that. But once you recognize that you'll always have to do it. As an entrepreneur, there will always be something to do. So I'm, helping you right now. Just acknowledge that. When you do, life gets easier. And I see from Sandy, she says the whole power thing, time allowance, it's really tough. Yeah, it is. It is. That's where the discipline part comes in. If you want what you want, if you're happy where you are, and that's fine. No one's here to tell you that you need to be someplace at a certain time or at a certain rank or that is all up to you. But if you make that commitment to yourself, then you have to realize that there are activities that will support that. So that's the decision that you make. So the color coding thing is one of the things I really highly endorse, whatever way you keep your calendar, because what's going to happen is it's going to show you where your deficiencies are. And I don't mean deficiencies as in you're not good enough. I mean deficiencies as in your time management, what you need to be spending most or more of your time on. And it was always easier for me because my family was young when I first started in network marketing, that I had to mark off the non-negotiables first. So things that absolutely had to be in my calendar that I couldn't give away because, I was mom to two young boys, and there was stuff that had to be done. So I would acknowledge that, but then I'd also acknowledge that for my personal goals and where I wanted to be in a certain amount of time, rank-wise, that there were things that I had to do. So I made that commitment to myself because I don't know about you, if it wasn't in my calendar, it didn't get done. It just didn't get done. It fell away. So I'm going to be honest here. But those are the kinds of things that when you start to develop early on, it's just going to become part of what you do, and keeping that promise to yourself. And that's really, I think, as moms, as caregivers, whatever, if you're caring for parents, if you're caring for children, no matter what, family, that whole family thing, it is a struggle for us, because we want to be the best we can be for them, but also keep in mind, you want to be the best you can be for yourself too. And I think that's where Young Living can really, really help, because of all the products that we have, in terms of the support that, all of our products give us, then we really, really have that advantage. And there again is the whole beauty of being able to share this, because everyone needs to know. Everyone needs to discover what is going to make them feel and be a better person, no matter what that is in their life. I mean, even if it's things like savvy, like makeup, that can be something for someone too. Make them feel, better, or just knowing that, our products, are safe. And so I truly get excited when I start thinking about everything that we have to offer. And, when I became the country manager, and taking a look at PV promos and all of that, I realized that this is really just a vehicle to help you get more excited. If you're not yet there, and if you're speaking to people that aren't, then it's not about what you can get free, but it's about what you get to experience without having to pay for it. It's really what that's about. And so when we look at the PV promos, that's what we're trying to help you do. Have that tool to be able to share and help them understand. And don't even get me started on essential rewards, because that's another big question that I get all the time. I have such trouble talking about essential rewards. And I think my experience there is that when I explain it, I keep it really simple. Again, I don't have that verbal avalanche about it. I keep it extremely simple and about the benefits to them. So I think that's probably my number one tip, is develop the relationship by trying to find out what's important to them, and keep everything that you talk about, that you engage with, about them. Because then it just becomes easy. It's a game changer, really, because the pressure is totally off you, because you're just looking for people that you want to share this with. That's really, when I was growing a business, that's how I looked at it. Who needs to meet me today? Who do I need to talk to today? What am I going to do, in my daily routine? How am I going to make sure that I talk about what I'm doing to at least, 1, 2, 3, whatever my goal was, people. And there again, it's all about the relationship kind of thing. So I just noticed, I looked up at the clock. I've been talking for 23 minutes. Talk about verbal avalanche. But, does anyone have any questions or comments or anything you'd like to discuss?
Okay, well, I'll jump in and share. And if you guys have questions, jump in the side and then you can have a turn. But one of the things I was thinking about when you were talking to is, I think it's so common that our biggest barrier is always ourselves. We always question what we have to offer. So you have this amazing opportunity with Young Living, with the products, with the opportunity, with the financial freedom, all of that stuff that we have to offer. But our barrier is always us. It's our fear. It's our feeling of, oh, maybe I'm not good enough, or inadequacy, whatever your challenge is. We all have one. And it's so cliche, but it's just, you do have to just take action and talk to somebody. And I feel like, reflecting and thinking about the beginning of my journey until now, the difference is the too much information, right? We know so much that now we get paralyzed. Whereas when I first started, I didn't know a lot, and I would just share a couple of things, and somebody would all of a sudden be excited. They would have a couple questions. I would have to take time to respond to them. And it was really about focusing on that individual person. So I don't know if you guys have heard the terms of micro and macro. So micro is the small thing, macro is the big thing. So it's great that now that we've been growing, and many of us have been doing this for a long time, and we have so many macro things. Like this call would be a macro event of getting people all together in one group to learn something new. We have Facebook events or 101s, but I think the biggest thing that we forget is the little micro things that nobody sees. So is it that connection with somebody that it doesn't always have to be about Young Living either, is we need to create those really good relationships where you have more to talk about than just, hey, have you used this product? Or, hey, do you need to buy this? Where if you just get to know a real person and what their heart is, what their desires are. Like maybe the products aren't for them, but they need a couple $100. So you just have to, you have to know a person to know how you can help them. And I've always learned too, of like, to just, for somebody to trust you and to trust what you have to offer, you have to be a good recommender of other things besides Young Living. So as an example, I had an amazing chiropractor that I met a couple months ago, and I love her. So the girls I go to the gym with, I was telling them about this chiropractor. You know, somebody that I met on the street, I was recommending this chiropractor. I had nothing to gain from it, but from the relationships that I have, they trust my recommendation. And now if they go and see her and it works and they have the same great experience that I did, they're likely going to believe another recommendation that I have. I know you all know my beautiful friend, Jill Fredrickson, and she was sharing a story here a few days ago about a washing machine that broke down. And she needed a washing machine, and she needed it that day. So she phoned an expert, she got a recommendation, and she made a purchase within 5 hours or something crazy. So people, like, we trust people that give good recommendations. And I think it's just focusing on those really small, fine details that, you know, people don't see. That's what builds up to the bigger things. Then you have people to invite to the bigger events. So I think that's just something really good to keep in mind.
You know what, Megan, you're exactly right, because you never want to be that person that's continually talking about Young Living, so that when you walk down one side of the street, everyone is like, you know, crossing the street because they don't want to talk to you. And you have to find those commonalities. And it's through conversation, it's through getting to know someone, it's through those recommendations of things other than Young Living, because there's so much, you know, in like in life that you can relate to, whether they're, you know, your moms from school, or, you know, wherever you're meeting people. So it's not necessarily that you have to always lead with Young Living. Mm-hmm. But the funny thing is when you start to talk about other things, you're going to be able to identify those opportunities where you can talk about Young Living. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if it's especially because kids are an easy one, because there's always something with our children, right? So you can start to talk about what you've done, how oils have supported you and your family. You know, if it's about, you know, babies, and, you know, there's all the seedlings. And so, I mean, like, there's so much that you can use with, like, of our products that you can use to share authentically. But it doesn't have to be the first thing out of your mouth. You know? And I think that's part of the challenge that our members experience, is that they're very excited, want to talk about it, but just don't know how to start. Well, start by getting to know the person, just as Megan said. That's going to be your best jumping off point, because you're going to find out what's important to them.
That's awesome. And the space to ask questions, like, that's such a great, just something, a really good thing to remember, is always giving people that space, because majority of us don't like awkward silence. So instead of letting people have that time, we talk.
You know, and that's the thing. That's really the thing, because you feel that with the silence, you have to fill it, but mm-hmm. That's not necessarily so. And it's okay to allow the person to have the time to think of a response. And you can say things, oh, take your time, that's okay. You know, make them feel at ease. And because what's going to happen, if you continue to talk and not allow them that space, they're going to start listening to you, and then not thinking about their response, and then not give you a truly and meaningful response, simply because they're overloaded. Mm-hmm. And yes, just like Jim and Jill said, sometimes silence can be good, because it allows you the time. Mm-hmm. And so take it, embrace it. It's actually a really, really great tool, because what it does is allow you to listen actively. And active listening is really a wonderful skill to master. And it's about asking the right questions. And it's definitely about leaving the space for the response without thinking that you have to fill it in. Because if you do, you're not getting the response from the person. You're giving your own response to your own question, really, which is kind of not the point.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, I get nervous and keep talking to fill in the silence. You don't have to. Just say, take your time. I really would like to hear what you have to say. Like those kinds of things that encourage. And if it feels like it's taking a long time, then the best thing you can do is ask another question. Never be afraid to ask the questions. No, what was I? Never be afraid to ask the questions you need to know the answers to. Because we get nervous about that too. So, for example, you're talking about it, they say, no, now's really not the right time for whatever reason. And in your mind, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I really want to be able to call them back, but I don't want to feel pushy, right? But you're thinking, well, when am I going to call you back? I really need to know. So ask the question. So Megan, is it okay if I call you back in a couple of days? Because I really want to know what you think. Not, I really want to talk to you so that I can roll you or sell you something or put you on ER. No, I just want to hear what you think. See, that's establishing the relationship, and that's taking the fear out of the return connection, right? So there will more likely be open to that return connection if you take the fear out of it. Say, I really want to know what you think. That is a great tool. That's another one of my tips. Never ask a question that hasn't been asked. Forget who I heard that from, but I've always remembered that. And it's easy to talk them out of it. You are absolutely right, Jim and Jill. That is right. I learned a long time ago that if you're talking too much, you're probably talking them out of it. And the reason that is because you're overloading. You're basically overloading them. And we all know that if you overload someone, they don't know what the answer is, so they'll say no because it's easier and it stops the conversation, right? Okay, so what else? There's a hand up. I see Christy. I saw your hand.
Yeah, go ahead, Christy.
Can I have two questions?
Sure can.
I'm needy. Okay, so because I had one question and then I realized that I had another question. So number one question that I thought of was, what advice would you give to someone who's lost momentum and needs to basically start all over again? And then number two is, how do you ask people to become a business builder? Like, how would you open that conversation?
Okay, so the first one, are you asking me, Christy?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, you.
Oops.
Anybody else too?
Anybody else too.
I'm open to it all.
Okay, so what was the first question? How to re-engage someone?
Well, for the business one is like, how do you engage somebody into, or ask them on how to become a business, like how do you get somebody to become a business builder? And then the other one was like, what do you do when you've lost momentum and you need to basically start all over again?
Okay, so let's just talk about the first one. No, that's okay. These are great questions. So how do you ask someone if they want to become a business builder?
Yeah,
it's about the options, because they need to know the roadmap. So where can I go? What does that mean? So if you're starting a brand new member, I always like to start with the end in mind. What does that mean? That's cliche, but it actually it's meaningful because starting someone means that you are presenting the options to them, not all at once, because that again is overwhelming. But when you have, however you do it, if you do, new member orientation or you do one-on-ones, however that works. I used to do a new member orientation. So every week, everyone who had enrolled someone, they knew that they could come to this meeting. Sometimes it was in person, depending on where I was, to talk about the things about getting started and the things that you needed to do. So however you make that happen, then that would be the time to let them know that you can you can start with personal use, and that's usually where members do. But also, if you decide that you would like to tell everyone about your amazing experience, then you can actually turn your love of Young Living products into a home-based business, just the way I have. And let me tell you how it works. And so you go into that very high level. It's not about the compensation plan. It's not about, so you are basically presenting those options right from the get-go. And so if you start doing that as a practice, then you can go back and you can say, hey, Christy, do you remember when, last week when we talked about the opportunity to turn this into a business? Have you given that some thought? So you start the conversation that way. And then you talk about a little bit about the benefits, you get in a little more depth, but it's not an overwhelming thing, because what you're doing is you're partnering with them to make sure that they're experiencing and the questions are answered and they want to know more about the products. Because let's face it, think about how you decided to become a builder. You love the products and you wanted to share it. That's at the heart of it. So never ever forget that. You want something better for someone else. Mm-hmm. That's the game-changing part. So I always made it a practice to talk about it from the get-go so that I could go back and say, do you remember when we had that conversation? Did you give it some thought? Do you have any questions about that? Because did you know that, there are bonuses to be had? And so you can go into, a little more depth about those kinds of things. But it really is about letting them know what's available to them, because they're not going to know unless they're a self-motivator, unless they're self-starters, unless they've come into this thinking that they want to build a business, they're most likely not going to know. Mm-hmm. So, the one of the saddest things that can happen is when a member says, I never know. I didn't know. I didn't know that was an option for me. I would have started sooner. So make sure that you are doing your due diligence by giving them the information to make a decision that's right for them. Would we like all our members to be business builders? Yes, we would. But the truth of the matter is it's not the reality, and it's not for everyone at this time or that time in their life. So your job is to just make sure that they revisit it every once in a while. Remember when we talked, Marilyn, a little while ago about building business? You said it wasn't the time for you, but I'm just checking in. Have things changed? Are you thinking that now might be the time for you? So that's one of the things too. As a leader, we're always sifting and sorting. Always sifting and sorting. Mm-hmm. Who needs our attention? Who has that little spark? Who, that fire, right? So that's probably the easiest way to start is, and then if you haven't done that, don't worry, you get a do-over. It's not about, make mistakes. You can't go back, because this is always about learning. So you can revisit it. And you can say, hey, Christy, I was thinking about you the other day, and, you've been a Young Living member for X number of months, years, whatever. And I want to be sure that you're aware of what the business opportunity side of things looks like. Do you think you and I can get together and we can have, a talk about that, and I can tell you how things work? So easy to do. Mm-hmm. And if it's not the right time for them, then, accept that and move on, but say, sure, I totally understand and respect that. But you know what? I don't want you to miss out on what could potentially be something really wonderful for you and your family. So how about we revisit this in a month? How does that sound? So you're making that appointment and you're color coding it, you know, because you're going to go back and revisit having a talk in my calendar, Christy, business building, you know, whatever I'm going to talk about. So can you imagine, okay, think of this, all of the people, the members on your team who you have not had that conversation with, who you can now make the time to go back and revisit that. And if it's not the right time, make appointments in the future for that. How fast do you think your calendar would get full?
Pretty fast.
Pretty exciting, right? Like, to me, that's exciting. Like, oh my gosh, I can fill my calendar with appointments. You know? So this is a challenge to you. Go back and have a look at your team. Who do you need to talk to? Answer, everyone. You know, because you don't know what's in someone's life, in someone's mind, in someone's brain. You know, and don't get me started on that whole prejudging thing, because that is such a disservice to not only yourself, but to that person. We can't possibly know what's going on in someone's life. We just can't. So never make that assumption that they're not interested in it because of whatever. And you know what? Maybe it's not for them. That's so okay. But who do they know? One of my favorite things to say was, well, you know what, Megan, I totally understand and respect that. But if it's not you, you know, if it's not about, who do you know? Because I respect your opinion and I would really love to know who you know that you can maybe put me in touch with. And because of that, I would get so many referrals, because people would think, they would understand that, okay, she gets it. She's not going to push me. I want you to know that I'm always here. If you want to come back, we can always talk about it. But who do you know that might need Young Living in their life? Because I would take that as, you know, a recommendation from you, and I value your opinion. And, you know, someone says to me that they value their, you know, my opinion. That's awesome. So I hope that's given you some things on that first answer there, Christy. And the other one was about re-engaging. Is that what it was?
Gaining momentum when you've fallen off the map.
Okay, now is that for a member or for you personally? And I'm not saying you, I'm saying like for me personally to get myself motivated again. Okay. Well, there's an old saying in network marketing, and it, sometimes you need the meeting and sometimes the meeting needs you. And what that means is you kind of have to get back on the horse and you just start to immerse yourself in everything that you can. And you've started tonight by something like this. Most often when we have lost our mojo, you know, whenever it's, you know, just kind of not happening, we're not excited, we tend to retreat and we tend to pull ourselves away from, you know, things like meetings, things like, you know, events, whatever. And that's probably not the best thing to do, because then you just fall away. You just disconnect. And, you know, we started tonight's meeting by saying, you know, one of the first things about this business is the connection. So when you're feeling that you've lost your momentum, the good news is you can get it back. But there is, you know, there are activities that you need to do. First thing, connect with your leader and let them know, you know, hey, I'm feeling kind of meh. I need to connect with you. Can I have some, you know, some one-on-one time just to let you know where, you know, where I am business-wise. Whatever you do, please honor your leader by talking about business. Yes, your leader in some instances, and maybe even most instances, are your friends. But if you are looking to get back momentum, it's not about having a therapy session with your leader. And I'm really sorry for that kind of bluntness, but it's really true. If you want to get back into business, then keep it to business. And our leaders are so loving and giving of themselves. They will always be there for you. But if you want to talk about business, then talk about business. And then if you need to talk on a friendship or personal level, then take it outside of that business time, because you're also going to do yourself a disservice as well. Because, sometimes when life throws us stuff, and it always will, you can guarantee that, the best thing you can do is compartmentalize a little bit. And when you connect with your leader and talk about business, that's going to be one of the first things that'll help you get back on track. And of course, I'm not saying this is, to anyone in particular. I'm just saying in general, when you keep a business conversation about business, it really and truly helps you to get back on track. The second thing is to, be disciplined. You have to block that time to just get your derriere in the chair and do what it is that you got to do. And it's hard to do that if you've been pulled away because of life circumstances or because of whatever. But if you truly ask yourself and examine what it is that you want, you have to find that inner strength to get going again. And when you start to get going again, you'll find that it's easier, because, what's the hardest call to make? The first one. But then you get into that groove, and then you start, you start getting into that cycle of doing the things that you normally did. So booking some classes, having one-on-ones, posting on social media, whatever that looks like, from what you used to do. Then that's where you have to be. Now I see that Sandy, and where would she go? Events motivate me, both attending and planning. There you go. Get yourself immersed. So I guess that's really my best advice, is to immerse yourself in the activities that feed you, and try not to shy away, even though that's what we feel like doing sometimes, because we've all been there. Oh my gosh, acknowledge that too. We have all been there. And there's something that you pull yourself into because you remember what it meant to you. So think about those things. I mean, even if it's just looking at photos or looking at journal entries or, whatever that is, think about those things that feed you, because most often they'll be the things that will bring you back in. And the thing is, that's what our business is. It is peaks and valleys. But there's nothing more motivating than enrolling someone new. Yeah, that's the truth of it. That's the bottom line. When you enroll someone new, especially when you're trying to get your mojo back, that person's excitement brings you along. And then you start to remember, all of the things that you loved about what you were doing. And again, there's that connection piece. That's where it always goes back to. So I made it a point of never to attend a meeting or an event or whatever I did by myself when I was building a business. And even into, when I became a leader and all of that, I never went to anything that was offered without a guest who was not already, a member. So a non-member guest, because that always fed me, that always kept me going, that always gave me someone to reconnect with. Get if it wasn't that time for them, I would always be able to circle back, because I asked them, when can we get together again, or when can we chat about this? Acknowledge and realize that, not everyone is going to say yes. I mean, think about your own journey. Did you say yes right away? Some of us may have, which is awesome, which is fabulous, but that's not really the norm. You have to keep in contact with people to help them see the benefits. And sometimes, it's a few times. And I don't know, I think the Direct Sellers Association says it's something like between 7 and 12 times that they have an exposure to whatever it is. That's how long it takes for someone to come around. And, sometimes it's even longer. Like, think about your own stories. It's, And when you start to make that equation and realize the commonalities, and you realize, okay, then, what am I worried about? But the trick is you have to keep talking to people. You always have to have that roster of people to talk to. And that comes with building the relationship and helping to foster it on common grounds, not necessarily Young Living, just like what we were talking about at the beginning.
Yeah.
So that's my very long-winded answer.
Awesome. And I think one thing that I would add to that too for momentum is to think about, it's not always, we can't think about other people always motivating us. It has to be kind of an internal thing. So think about being the thermostat rather than a thermometer, right? We set the temperature of what we want, right? We set the excitement. We set the level, and other people want to join in on that instead of us expecting other people to influence how we feel. And I'm telling you, it's not easy, right? But when you think about, okay, I'm the one that sets the excitement. I'm the one that gets motivated. I'm the one that has to first do those things. Other people are going to want to do that with you. It's kind of like a storm that they want to follow in a way. They want to be excited. And then the other point I thought about your like business builders is, if we did a poll tonight of everybody on the call, my guess is 99% of you, if not 100, joined because you loved the product and it was product first, right? I know that people say always lead with the business, and in some cases you want to, and like Victoria said, you always want to offer that that's an option, but people that really, really love the business will be 100% customers for life, right? Once they're sold with the product, they're using Essential Rewards, they're sold out. Now it's just showing them, okay, well, you've had so many amazing experiences. How can I help you share with people that you care about in your life? And then they see a $200 check and it's like, wow, that was easy. Like my husband and I weren't going to do this. Like as soon as he found out it was network marketing, he said no. Like he looked at me in the meeting and was like, not happening.
In the square, right?
Totally. And it's like I just started naturally sharing because it was just out of the excitement and the love and like the change in my life that I thought, well, I got to tell this person about it. And I knew they would love it. And you have to help people easily share with somebody else. And I think as soon as you have people earning just that little bit, that's really what can spark them wanting to be a business builder. Most people don't come in and think, I'm going to build a business, right? You might have 1 or 3% of people that would actually want that. Most people just want, good products in their life or those simple little things. They don't think business. They may want a couple $100. They may want a good product. So their brain isn't focused on this huge picture right away. So if you give them those tiny little slices of, let me help you do this, let me help you do this, and we're giving them that playing field that's super easy. We're making it, it's like a zero entry for them. It's easy for them to start sharing. That's kind of when they might catch on. If we make it too complicated, people get scared.
That's right.
So those were just kind of the couple things I thought I'd throw in.
You're right, Megan, too, because that is absolutely why people will join, because of their love of the product and their interest in the product. So talking about business is giving them that roadmap when they've got their feet wet a little bit. In other words, so when I was talking about it at the get-go, to me is within a month's time they've used product. They've got it's not necessarily far down, and sometimes one of the best things you can do with that is help them think of people who they want to share it with, because they're not going to think of it in those terms. And I'm not talking about let's share this because we all want to build a business. I'm talking strictly about the way that Young Living can help them in their life. That's the beauty about what we do, is that when you think about sharing, we're talking about how our products can help them in their life. And then when they're excited that way, they need to know what that roadmap is. Because you know what, I see that you've been doing this, and I see that you're having fun and your friends and whatever. Have you ever thought about
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Because that's where we start. We start by helping others to have a better quality of life in whatever way that is, big or small.
That's awesome. Well, we did run a little bit over time. Oh, that's okay. That's totally okay. We are so thankful that you were able to join us tonight.
Wasn't that just 5 minutes? We were just talking
totally.
for 5 minutes.
It always goes so fast when you're having fun, right? So there's a couple other questions here that we will take off of Zoom, and we will connect with Angela and Eunice here on your couple of questions. And we just want to honor everybody's time tonight and get back to their families and that sort of thing. So thank you again to Victoria for taking time out of her night. She's in Eastern time, so I know it's super late where you are. And
I have my jammies on. Look, can you
nice. See, that's the beauty of our business. We get to wear jammies. You just have a nice top on.
Nice Taylor shirt, jammies on the bottom.
That's perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate each and every one of you taking time to join us tonight. We know time is our only limited commodity. So when you look to grow yourself and learn something new, it does make a huge difference in your life and in your business. So we just want to honor you tonight for doing that. And June is amazing. You guys likely all know the promos. We still have the Dream 1000. So there's a lot of amazing stuff and excitement for June. So keep sharing, and we will connect with you all very soon. Thank you guys, and I hope you have a wonderful night.
Thanks, Megan. Really great.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.